As of right now, nothing concrete has still happened with Coyote Pass.
Picture this, a quiet July afternoon in Flagstaff, where the most explosive confrontation in Sister Wives history happened not with cameras rolling, or family drama spilling across the living room, but in the most ordinary place imaginable, a credit union parking lot. Janelle Brown sat behind the wheel of her car, windows down, probably thinking this was just another mundane meeting about paperwork. Kody had called, asking her to swing by to wrap up some loose ends about Coyote Pass. Simple enough, right? But when your ex-husband shows up clutching a stack of papers with that particular urgency in his voice, you know you're about to get blindsided, and that's exactly what happened. Kody didn't ease into it or try to soften the blow. He just thrust those documents through her window and launched into this rapid-fire explanation about tax filings and shared LLCs and why, somehow, her name was still tangled up in financial obligations she thought she'd left behind. But here's the thing about Janelle, she's sharp. And she's been through enough of Kody's chaos to smell trouble from a mile away. She didn't even turn off her engine, just rolled that window down halfway, took one look at the cover page, and asked the question that cut straight to the heart of it all. Why is Robyn's address on this? That moment, that single question, revealed everything. Here was a 2023 IRS notice tied to some old real estate LLC from back when the Brown family still functioned as one big, complicated financial unit. The problem, even though Janelle had walked away from Kody over a year and a half ago, even though she'd declared her independence and rebuilt her life, that company had never been properly dissolved, which meant the IRS still saw her as responsible for whatever financial mess Kody and Robyn had been creating in her absence: land maintenance bills, overdue property fees, expenses that kept piling up long after she'd said goodbye to that whole world. There she was, sitting in her car, realizing that leaving Kody emotionally was one thing, but untangling herself from years of shared financial decisions, that was turning out to be a whole different kind of nightmare.
I am trying to collect all the documentation I need to explain to the lawyer what happened as far as the payment on the land.
And then came the manipulation, that familiar Kody Brown specialty that his ex-wives know all too well. Standing there beside her car, he shifted into that tone. The one that's part pleading, part pressure. This is just a signature to close it out, he reportedly told her, his voice carrying that edge of desperation masked as reasonableness. You don't want to drag this out in court, do you? But Janelle Brown didn't become financially independent by falling for guilt trips. As she scanned those papers, red flags started popping up everywhere: missing expense reports, vague figures listed under something called owner distributions, numbers that didn't add up to anything she remembered agreeing to. This wasn't the clean, simple paperwork Kody had promised. Her response was pure Janelle, direct, smart, and absolutely unmovable. Email me every receipt and ledger page, she told him, before I even think about touching a pen. Then, in a move that probably felt like the most satisfying thing she'd done all year, she put her car in drive and left Kody standing there on the sidewalk, watching her taillights disappear. But here's what makes this whole thing even more infuriating. This isn't Kody's first rodeo when it comes to financial sleight of hand with his former wives. Cast your mind back to 2020, when he was pushing this bizarre idea of building one massive shared home. Despite the fact that the family was already fracturing, even then, Janelle was the cautious one, keeping her name off mortgages that didn't benefit her, maintaining paper trails that now look less like paranoia and more like pure genius. Because those careful records, they're about to become her lifeline. Sources say this tax situation might stretch back years, involving deductions that were taken under Janelle's name without her ever knowing about it. Imagine discovering that while you were building your new life, your ex-husband was still using your identity to write off expenses you never approved. And here's where the story gets truly twisted. Robyn apparently knew. A former production staffer claims she once joked during a filming break, laughing about how Janelle's name is still on everything and how Kody's just waiting for her to forget. Well, surprise, she didn't forget. And now that lawyers are getting involved and receipts are being demanded, that casual parking lot encounter just became the spark that lit a much bigger fire. What looked like a simple, awkward exchange between two exes was actually the moment years of financial manipulation finally came to light. Because this is the thing about Kody Brown: when money gets tight, boundaries start to blur. And obligations have a funny way of sliding across the table to whoever he thinks won't fight back hard enough. This time, he picked the wrong woman.
That it was really kind of our joint funds that paid the bulk of the property, and therefore we should be entitled to split it 4 ways.
This is Kody Brown's playbook laid bare: years of quietly exploiting old legal connections, banking on confusion around shared assets, and counting on his wife's willingness to keep the peace until One by one, they simply stopped playing along, and Janelle, she's officially done being the good sport, while the rest of the world saw her as the practical, even-tempered wife who rarely stirred the pot. Behind closed doors, she's been conducting her own private investigation. For months now, she's been pulling apart the financial threads that once bound this family together, going all the way back to those early Flagstaff days when every wife was asked to pour money into one big shared account for the land, for the family, for some collective future that now looks like a complete fantasy. Picture this, Janelle, surrounded by literal banker's boxes, those old-fashioned cardboard ones stuffed with binders, full of invoices, tax forms, and receipts. Dating back to 2010, she's become her own forensic accountant. And what she's finding is painting a disturbing picture. At least 3 years where her name was attached to tax deductions for properties she never lived in, expenses she never approved, money flowing to places she never agreed to fund. But here's the detail that really stings: a string of deductions tied to home office upgrades that weren't for any family business at all. Word is, they were for Robyn's online jewelry venture, a personal side hustle that somehow got written off using Janelle's identity, not a family investment, not something Janelle had any stake in, just Robyn's business getting a tax break on Janelle's dime. This isn't just about one messy tax year. Janelle is tracing every signature, every cross-filed form, and the numbers aren't adding up to anything that resembles the financial transparency she thought she was part of. And honestly, anyone who's watched this show for years saw this coming. Remember that brutal moment in season 15 when Kody accused Christine of abandoning investments and painted the whole land situation as some kind of betrayal? But here's what those betrayals really were: reactions to deals Kody had already made without telling everyone. Situations where the wives got looped in only after the damage was done. Janelle, being the most financially savvy of the group, was usually the one asking the uncomfortable questions. But her instinct to keep the peace meant letting things slide. Not anymore. Now she's highlighting bank statements and cross-referencing them with tax filings that Kody submitted while they were still legally connected through that LLC. And what those statements show is chilling deposits and withdrawals that don't match any family meeting decisions anyone remembers. Money disappearing without approval, not just from Janelle, but apparently even from Mary, whose recent silence is starting to feel less like indifference and more like she knows exactly what's going on. If Janelle really is going full forensic accountant, then Kody isn't just looking at a tax problem, he's staring down a paper trail that could expose years of financial manipulation. Because if she can prove misuse of her identity or funds, this stops being about taxes and becomes about something much bigger: accountability. And while Janelle quietly works through boxes of evidence, the internet has become her unlikely ally. On Reddit, Facebook, and TikTok, Sister Wives fans have turned into amateur investigators, cross-referencing tax filings with property purchases, analyzing background footage from old episodes for financial clues. What they're finding is a pattern that's impossible to ignore: questionable timing, mysterious LLC transfers, and expenses that somehow always seem to benefit one household way more than the others. The digital breadcrumbs are leading to the same conclusion Janelle's banker's boxes are revealing. This was never about shared sacrifice or family unity. This was about one person's financial strategy disguised as collective decision-making. And now the receipts are finally coming due.
I saw what was happening, but I trusted it would all work out in the end. And looking back now, I'm like, wow, I was really dumb. Why did I not insist that we were all titled on all the pieces?
The spotlight has finally turned to where fans always suspected it would: Robyn's lifestyle. Because while Kody spent years preaching about equal sacrifice and shared resources, the numbers were telling a completely different story. And now, thanks to Janelle's relentless digging, the receipts are finally surfacing to back up what viewers have been saying all along. Here's where it gets absolutely infuriating. Remember Robyn's online jewelry business, the one that was supposed to prove her independence and entrepreneurial spirit? Well, just as that venture was crashing and burning, something interesting was happening with the family finances. Kody suddenly started pouring money into home-based business upgrades, money that, according to recently uncovered documents, appears to have come straight from the shared LLC that Janelle and Christine had contributed to. And then came the smoking gun that has fans absolutely losing their minds. An alleged ledger page that's been circulating online shows a 5-figure expense labeled office decor and shelving, dated just weeks before Robyn unveiled her infamous doll room on camera. Coincidence? The internet thinks not, and honestly, neither do we. But the real bombshell came from someone who was actually there, watching it all unfold. A production crew source claims they overheard Kody during a season 17 filming break, venting his frustration about having to shuffle money Brown again because the wives don't understand how taxes work. The audacity is breathtaking, blaming the wives for not understanding a system he was apparently manipulating behind their backs. Because here's the thing that makes this even more twisted. The wives weren't just being kept out of financial decisions, they weren't even being shown the paperwork. It's not just a matter of signing forms. The source revealed they weren't even being shown the forms in the first place. Janelle's awakening to this financial nightmare didn't happen overnight. It started last fall when she tried to get a small business loan and was denied because her name was still tied to a delinquent real estate company she thought she'd left behind. That rejection sent her down a rabbit hole that would change everything. What she found was staggering, at least one six-figure discrepancy that appears to trace directly back to Robyn's household expenses, security systems, custom furniture orders, backyard upgrades for her million-dollar home, all of it allegedly flowing through accounts that once carried Janelle's name. The timeline is what makes this story truly heartbreaking. Social media investigators have overlaid credit reports with county permit filings, revealing luxury upgrades to Robyn's house during the exact same period that Janelle was living in an RV, fighting off winter in a trailer while another wife's home was getting topiary landscaping and interior designers. Fans aren't mincing words anymore, they're calling it what it looks like. A systematic siphoning of family resources dressed up as legitimate business expenses. And if even half of what Janelle's uncovering proves true, Kody's problems extend far beyond a simple tax bill for Janelle. This journey started with skepticism, not revenge. But after weeks of chasing down emails, digging through folders, and hearing Kody's dismissive "it's nothing, just sign it" one too many times, something shifted. Skepticism hardened into strategy. In late July, she quietly retained legal counsel, not just any lawyer, but someone who specializes in financial disclosures, LLC dissolutions, and forensic audits. Someone who's handled business breakups nastier than this and knows exactly how to untangle years of financial manipulation. The lawyer's first move was devastating in its precision, requesting a full forensic review of every business entity tied to the Brown family name. Brown Family Entertainment, Kody Brown Family LLC, and at least one Arizona-based holding company connected to Coyote Pass and the Flagstaff mortgages. All companies where multiple wives had been listed as co-owners or contributors at various points, all companies that were never properly dissolved when the marriages ended. This is where Kody's casual approach to paperwork finally caught up with him. Because while Janelle had tried to remove herself from the financial picture after their split, those companies still existed, still carried her name, and still left her legally exposed to any taxes or debts they accumulated. The woman who once balanced all their bills while raising 6 kids had become the forensic accountant who could take it all down. And if Kody thought he could fast talk his way through this mess, he clearly forgot who he was dealing with. This is Janelle Brown, and she's just getting started.
I'm like, wow, I was really dumb. Why did I not insist that we were all titled on all the pieces?
The moment that changed everything came through an anonymous envelope, scanned copies of internal family spreadsheets, sent by someone who claimed to have worked in the Browns' back office. During their TLC golden years, these weren't official documents that anyone was supposed to see, but there they were, landing in Janelle's legal team's hands like a roadmap to years of financial manipulation. What those spreadsheets revealed was devastating. A multi-year pattern of income flowing through central accounts, before being redistributed in ways that heavily, almost absurdly, favored one particular household. The smoking gun, a recurring monthly withdrawal of nearly $7,000, labeled simply Household B. When Janelle's lawyer asked the obvious question, who exactly was Household B? The silence spoke volumes. Kody's initial reaction was pure Kody Brown, shocked but dismissive, the way someone acts when they've been caught but still think they can charm their way out of it. He started downplaying the lawyer's involvement to other family members, calling it a scare tactic and insisting there was nothing worth auditing. Just Janelle being dramatic as usual, but that confident facade cracked the moment a formal request hit his doorstep in early August. This wasn't some casual inquiry, it was a comprehensive demand for full banking history, digital transaction logs, and every communication related to those questionable tax filings. He knows what this is, one source revealed. This is Janelle drawing a line in the sand. And Robyn, her name appears on at least 2 of the disputed accounts. And she's definitely not staying quiet behind the scenes. While her public statements have been carefully neutral, insiders say she's privately pushing Kody to settle fast and quietly. She's terrified that a full audit could open up bigger questions about how TLC earnings were actually divided, and whether any of that money ever officially belonged to the family collective in the first place, because if it didn't, if those TLC Checks were going somewhere other than the shared pot everyone assumed they funded. Then this story just got a whole lot bigger. True to form, Kody's first instinct when the walls started closing in wasn't to take responsibility, it was to find someone else to blame. And he found the perfect target, a former bookkeeper who had managed the family's finances. During their reality TV peak, we trusted the wrong person. He reportedly told anyone who'd listen, and now we're paying for it. But here's the problem. With that convenient excuse, the receipts Janelle's team is uncovering don't point to some rogue employee making unauthorized transactions. They point to decisions that came from Kody himself. Transactions that bear his digital fingerprints. Choices that can't be explained away by blaming someone who's no longer around to defend themselves. As the pressure mounted through mid-July, desperation started to set in. Kody began making frantic calls, trying to patch together some kind of quick financial fix. He reached out to at least two former family friends, hoping they'd co-sign a small business loan for reasons he couldn't quite explain. The desperation in those calls must have been palpable. But the most telling moment came when he swallowed his pride and called Mary. Not with an apology for years of emotional neglect, but with a business proposition. He wanted her to use her personal LLC to secure the loan, promising full repayment once the Coyote Pass land finally sold. Mary's response was swift and brutal. She didn't even ask for details. Not again, she said, and hung up. Years of being manipulated and dismissed had taught her to recognize the sound of Kody's desperation. And she wanted no part of whatever financial mess he'd created this time, even now. As the legal pressure mounts and the evidence piles up, sources say Kody still has a few remaining loyalists urging him to settle quietly before this becomes a public catastrophe. But here's the thing about Kody Brown, he still believes he can talk his way out of anything, even when the receipts are stacked against him. Even when his ex-wives have finally stopped playing along, he's convinced that his charm and his excuses will somehow make this all go away. He's about to learn just how wrong he is.
Just want this to be done because this is the only thing that still ties me to Kody and Robyn. And I'm ready to just close that chapter.
Picture this, behind closed doors, he's convinced Janelle is just putting on a show. One insider whispers that he truly believes she'll back down when push comes to shove. After all, opening those financial books means her own money gets scrutinized, too. But here's what he might be missing. Janelle isn't the same woman who used to quietly step aside. This time, she's armed with allies and she's ready to let the chips fall where they may. While Kody clings to this hope, Robyn's world is quietly unraveling. The anxiety is eating at her, sources say. Because a full financial audit doesn't just reveal shared accounts, it exposes everything. How her household thrived while others struggled. How her house got the first renovations after that expensive Flagstaff move. How her children enjoyed private tutors and shiny new tech for remote learning while others made do with less. And perhaps most damning of all, how she allegedly held the keys to Kody's primary debit card while other wives had to ask permission just to fill up their gas tanks. These weren't just small advantages. Put them in black and white on an official document, and the court of public opinion could turn vicious fast. So while Kody desperately searches for someone, anyone, to stand by his side, and Robyn prays this nightmare will just fade away, Janelle keeps building momentum. Each week that passes, the screws tighten a little more. And if her audit uncovers what insiders believe it will, this family is heading toward a reckoning that no amount of damage control can fix. But there's another name that keeps surfacing in hushed phone calls and forwarded emails that people don't want traced back to them, Robyn. And this time, it's not just about playing favorites. It's about cold, hard cash. And the question everyone's asking, who really got rich while preaching family unity? Because while Kody scrambles to explain away tax notices and legal threats that keep piling up, Robyn's financial trail is being dissected piece by piece, not just by obsessed fans, but allegedly by Janelle's attorney. The latest firestorm started with screenshots, unverified, but spreading like wildfire across social media. They allegedly show PayPal transfers flowing from a shared Brown family account straight into a personal email linked to Robyn. The amounts tell a story, some just under $1,000, others breaking the $5,000 mark, but they all share the same maddeningly vague description: reimbursement. Reimbursement for what, exactly? That's the question burning through comment sections and fan forums, and so far, silence. One particular payment has fans absolutely livid. The timestamp shows late 2022, just weeks after Janelle publicly revealed she was living in a cramped RV, without even basic water hookups. Meanwhile, Robyn was apparently installing her second privacy fence around that Flagstaff mansion, a barrier that reportedly cost over $20,000. The optics were already brutal. Now they're explosive. It's not just about her getting more, one longtime viewer explains. Their frustration palpable. It's about her taking from the family pot while everyone else was being told. The money simply wasn't there. That's not favoritism, that's betrayal. Word is that Robyn has been frantically reaching out to Kody's accountant. Desperate to know if her name will get flagged in the audit Janelle's team is allegedly demanding. According to someone close to the situation, she's particularly worried about her boutique expenses, specifically that credit card tied to Brown Holdings. Sources claim that card blurred the lines between business inventory and personal shopping sprees. And without crystal clear documentation, investigators might start asking uncomfortable questions about where family money really went. And then there's that doll room. The one that started as Robyn's innocent little hobby showcase on TLC, but has now become ground zero for financial fury. Eagle-eyed fans have done the math on every visible piece, from the custom cabinetry to the museum-quality display lighting to those pristine porcelain dolls. Lined up like tiny witnesses, their estimate, over $60,000. $60,000 for a room full of toys while other family members were counting pennies. Robyn's camp swears she paid for it all herself, but the timeline tells a different story. And if Janelle's audit proves some of those charges flowed through the shared LLC, it won't just be fans asking questions, it'll be lawyers. You can see it in Robyn's face now, the way her usual on-camera confidence has cracked. She knows what's coming. Because once those numbers hit paper, there's no taking them back, no spinning them away. The peacemaker image she's spent years building could crumble in a single audit report. But at the heart of this entire mess sits a patch of Arizona desert that was supposed to represent hope, Coyote Pass, their promised land, their fresh start, their chance to build forever homes side by side. Instead, it's become a symbol of everything that went wrong, tangled up in legal threats and financial landmines that are about to explode. And Janelle? She's finally drawing her line in the sand. Sources say she's made her position crystal clear. Want her signature on those disputed tax papers? Then buy her out of Coyote Pass completely. No more empty promises about future equity or vague mentions of eventual payouts, cold, hard cash, or she walks away with her lawyers in tow. It's a power move that's caught Kody completely off guard. While he and Robyn were playing house, Janelle was quietly paying tens of thousands in interest on land she never got to build on. She was promised first choice of parcels, but instead got paperwork asking for her signature on an LLC that's been manipulated behind her back. She knows what it means when they suddenly want her signature. One insider reveals it's about cleaning up their mess. The panic really set in when Janelle demanded an independent appraisal of Coyote Pass before signing anything. If that property is worth more than expected, and if she can prove she shouldered more than her fair share of the costs, Kody could be legally obligated to pay her far more than he ever imagined. He assumed she'd walk away quietly, someone close to the situation explains, but she's playing this smart. She's waiting for the numbers to speak. Word is she's even secured her own assessor, someone with zero family connections and no TLC ties. Meanwhile, Christine is reportedly watching this whole showdown with barely concealed satisfaction. She might be free of the land drama, but she was the first to call out how unfair the arrangement was. Now that Janelle is the one demanding accountability, Christine's strategic silence feels like the loudest support of all. But as Janelle digs deeper into those land records, the questions multiply. Why was Robyn's name suddenly added to a separate parcel in 2022? Why were county fees paid late for 2 straight years? And where exactly did all that family investment disappear to? These aren't just hurt feelings anymore, they're line items on legal documents. And Janelle wants every single one accounted for. With Coyote Pass now firmly on the negotiating table, even TLC is starting to sweat, realizing their reality. Show Goldmine might be sitting on a legal powder keg that could explode at any moment. Behind the cameras, network executives are quietly sweating. Production insiders reveal that TLC isn't just watching this drama unfold. They're frantically calculating the cost. Because if this explodes into full-blown litigation, it's not just about hurt feelings anymore. It's about licensing deals, rerun revenues, and whether they can even keep rolling cameras without triggering new financial disclosure requirements. They're not just following the drama, they're tracking the money, one crew source confides. And with Janelle reportedly handing over documents that could expose both family business ventures and network-backed tax arrangements, producers are scrambling to prepare for every possible scenario, including a tell-all episode that could completely rewrite the story fans thought they knew. But here's where it gets really messy. Word is that TLC's own accountants have been quietly asked to revisit how Brown family payments were structured over the past 5 seasons. Sure, on paper, The paychecks looked equal per adult, but behind the scenes, there were whispers about funds being advanced to cover production-related housing, corporate speak, that allegedly allowed extra money to quietly slip toward Robyn's household. While the others may do with less, if that's true, the backlash won't just come from Janelle and Christine. It'll come from viewers who've spent years watching one wife live in comfort while others struggled, all while being told it was about equal treatment. Meanwhile, Kody is desperately trying to regain control the only way he knows how, with other people's money. Sources say he's been frantically calling private lenders across Arizona, pitching a buyout plan where he'd pay Janelle just enough to make her go away, while keeping Coyote Pass for future TLC filming. The problem? Nobody's biting. His credit's not what it used to be, one source explains bluntly. And lenders are wary about financing a property tied to so much bad press, especially one whose value might be inflated by TV exposure rather than actual equity. Then, there's the specter of back taxes haunting every conversation, with Janelle's attorney digging into unfiled expense reports and potentially misclassified income. The IRS could come knocking at any moment. If even one tax year shows signs of fraudulent reporting, especially with multiple adult names attached, TLC might be legally required to freeze all payments until the liability gets resolved. It's a domino effect, the insider warns. Once you audit one person, you start pulling threads that touch everyone. And those threads allegedly weave through business filings, production reimbursements, and possibly even personal loans exchanged when cameras weren't rolling. Robyn, who built her entire persona around hating drama, is reportedly spiraling with anxiety. A tell-all episode sounds exciting until someone starts reading every transaction line by line. And as Janelle's audit trail creeps closer to the surface, fans are starting to understand this isn't just reality TV conflict anymore. This is financial warfare, and the final credits are nowhere in sight. But beyond the balance sheets and legal documents, beyond the frozen smiles they paste on for cameras, this mess is tearing apart something even more precious: the relationships with their adult children. The kids who once quietly existed in the background of their parents' crumbling marriages are now being dragged into the wreckage, and while most have stayed publicly neutral, those close to the family say the cracks are starting to show in ways that no amount of editing can hide. The kids aren't staying silent anymore. Several of Janelle's children are quietly backing their mother's fight for transparency, even if it means exposing family secrets that could completely destroy their father's reputation. They're exhausted, watching her shoulder everything alone. One source confides she sacrificed her entire life for that family, and now they're treating her like damaged goods they need to discard. The kids are done with it. Gabriel and Garrison are reportedly seeing red over these latest developments. Remember those heartbreaking pandemic scenes when Kody's rigid rules shattered their relationship, leaving both boys feeling utterly abandoned? Now, with financial betrayal added to the mix, they're recognizing a cruel pattern that's been years in the making. First, he destroyed us emotionally, a friend says, paraphrasing one of them. And now he's trying to leave mom holding the bag financially. Even Peden, Christine's son, has been dropping mysterious hints online about an approaching storm, suggesting more bombshells are coming, not just about money, but about years of off-camera toxicity that viewers never witnessed. Meanwhile, the fanbase has evolved into a full-blown investigation network. TikTok threads now resemble detective case boards, connecting dots between spending patterns, business filings, and those damning PayPal transfers. Reddit sleuths are unearthing tax documents, analyzing property transactions, and even tracking down which companies delivered materials during Robyn's lavish home makeovers. Their collective conclusion: the math tells the real story. Janelle's been collecting evidence for years. One dedicated fan observed, she just finally decided to deploy it. This wave of public support has attracted serious attention from cultural observers who recognize this as more than trashy reality TV gossip. They're framing it as a window into the darker dynamics of plural marriages, where financial manipulation becomes a tool of emotional control. Legal experts specializing in family law are now dissecting what protections, if any, exist for spiritual wives when these relationships implode, especially when their identities were used on official documents without genuine informed consent. Opinions vary wildly, but everyone agrees on one thing: Janelle's situation could establish groundbreaking legal precedent for how post-polygamy financial disputes get resolved, particularly when television revenue and corporate structures muddy the waters. For Janelle, Christine, and even quieter Mary, who's also endured years of financial manipulation, this battle transcends money. It's about recovering their self-respect. They spent decades smiling for cameras, prioritizing family harmony, and trusting the financial framework Kody constructed. Now that framework is collapsing under examination, and they're demanding answers to the question nobody can deflect. Where did everything go? If Kody imagined this crisis would fade with awkward conversations and diplomatic emails, reality is about to hit him like a freight train. Sources reveal that Janelle's legal team has completed their initial audit investigation, and their discoveries could reshape everything. That report allegedly spans over 100 pages, containing bank records, property documents, private family correspondence, and detailed comparisons between TLC payments and actual family distributions. But here's the nuclear option. Those findings are reportedly heading directly to a judge. This has evolved beyond family conflict. If these documents contain what insiders suggest, Janelle may be gearing up for legitimate legal action, potentially forcing Kody to justify his financial management under oath in open court. Word is, Janelle isn't pursuing vengeance, she wants closure. She demands removal of her name from every business venture she's abandoned. She needs verification that her emotional and financial investments weren't simply squandered for the sake of artificial family unity. Most crucially, she wants protection from liability for obligations she never consented to assume. She performed the supportive wife role for decades, someone close explains. But now she's fighting solo, and she's prepared to see this through completely. Kody, meanwhile, is watching his support system crumble. Robyn, whose signature appears throughout the contested financial paperwork, is allegedly pressuring him to resolve everything swiftly and privately. Yet Janelle's strategic silence suggests settlement negotiations aren't even on the table. Multiple sources indicate she's ready to go completely public when necessary, given TLC's history of dramatic pivots when legal scandals threaten profitability. The show's entire future hangs in precarious balance.